Hey guys, it's Arlyn of Awakened Sponda, and I'm coming on today because truly Spirit just led me to do this. It's 212 portal date. Yesterday I had a really trying day mentally. I was really trapped in my thoughts a lot, and so I know that energy's been out there. It's a very anxious energy, a very stressful energy, like sleepless night kind of energy, like just very mental. You know, when you're caught up in your head and it's not really connecting to the body, and you know, it's not the best place to be in. But I had that really strongly yesterday. And anyway, I sense a lot of changes going on. Not only that, I'm seeing fives so much. Like, and I'm talking like when Spirit does this to me, like when I'm seeing the codes, the codings, it's like back to back, back to back, back to back. And so, but the energy behind it, every time I see the fives, I get super excited. So I know it's a shift. It's a game changing shift that's happening in my personal reality here, and also collectively. So I don't know if you guys can relate. Maybe you've been seeing these numbers. I'm talking like, I mean, I can't go. It's like 5 5 5 5 5 5 5 5. I mean, it's big time. So anyway, it's coding, guys, too. That's how I read. It's not just angel numbers like a lot of people talk about, but there's a lot more to numerology than that, and it's happening on a large scale. And I believe this goes into our governments and goes into what's actually happening behind the scenes, and the good things the good things that are turning over. Truly, the tail becoming the head, the last becoming the first, right? That's the shift I feel and sense happening. Oh my God. See, energy's going crazy. But yeah, it's very electric, and that's truly what I feel is happening, because not only I can relate to this in my own life, but I see this truly as the first, the last becoming first, the ones that have been putting in the actual work and the work and coming ahead, coming to the head. That is the transition that's happening. That's the shift that's occurring right now, that I'm reading into. And it's pretty amazing. It's a lot of unification happening. There's a lot of endings happening. A lot of things. Actually, I did a reading in the last video. It cut off on me, so I just started again. I'm like, oh, let's see what happens here. So, but I pulled the Ten of Swords right here. And that's all about a major completion, and not always the prettiest completion. It might have been a painful one. Sometimes when we have to let go of things that aren't serving us, it can be painful. You know, we don't want to let go of those old ways or those old things in our lives, you know, or whatnot. I see this also is very karmically related, things that have kept us in trapped patterns, almost like spell work. That's the way I see this. This ending, it's been completed, it's been done. Like you're free. You're free. That's what I see from that. And then I also pulled the Temperance immediately after, which is all about that pause. It says a pause to balance those cups out. And I feel like that's the energy as well. Because when this happens, when this comes to a completion, then you got to kind of regenerate, right? You got to get all that together. So to pause, think about it, right? So balance those cups out. And then what did I pull after that? A brand new beginning. And you know what? This new beginning is a wand, and wands are all about spirit. They're all about that fire, that passion. And there are leaders coming up now that have been sitting and waiting for quite some time. And it's time. It's time. It's time that the tale be listened to and be acknowledged. And that's what I see happening with these new beginnings. And it's because of a balancing that's occurred between masculine and feminine energies, more in the collective. In the collective. And there's some mighty things coming this year. Like I said, 2020 is all about partnerships, seeing the full spectrum. There are things being healed and not just healed. We're talking things are actually coming in alignment with like prophetically. Like it's happening, and it's beautiful. I'm witnessing it, and it's amazing. So I feel like that ending to the anxiety, because there's this full there's this movement forward now, and anyway, take that as you wish, and relate it to your life. See if it does this, maybe it resonates with what's going on in your own life personally. I feel this real heavily on the masculine side of things. Yeah, so I feel like the feminine is really just kind of rocking and rolling, man, like really rocking and rolling. But you got to get that balance and independence going on. Anyway, moving forward, I also want to, I really want to talk about, manifestation. People talk about manifestation all the time. We hear this constantly. It's all over my Facebook feed. There's always this next person that's going to teach you how to manifest all these things in your life, how you can bring about all the things you want and desire and all that. And it sounds real beautiful and all that. But I noticed that it's just such a, it's become such a hype, and it's really, in a lot of ways misleading to people, because they're not dealing with their shadows. They're not dealing with what's the other sides of themselves that may be really hindering any kind of manifestation happening in their life. And that comes through embracing the shadow. And not everything's gonna look like fucking unicorns and rainbows. And for a lot of us out there, we haven't been given rainbows and butterflies our entire life. And like for myself, I could say for good reason, that's because I could sit before you and talk about this. But when I was hard pressed in my life, when I was more hard pressed, and I've lived a life, I've been to jail. I've been to jail. I was in jail for 2 weeks one time, and for me, that's that's a lot. For some people, that's not so much. One of my favorite teachers actually spent time in prison. But when you're hard pressed, right? When you're broke, when you don't have the support, when you don't have things handed to you, when you're hard pressed in any sort of way, maybe if you're in an abusive situation, maybe your upbringing, whatever it might be, when you are down to the wire and there's nowhere to look but up, that is when the miracles happen. That is when things change. So you have to learn how to work with your own magic, your own magic. I'm telling you, like, it's tuning into yourself. That's when you truly begin to start manifesting things, and it's at random. You don't even know when the fuck that shit's gonna show up, but it does, and when it does, it's gonna blow your mind. This is the life I've been living for the past 2 years, and it wasn't necessarily because I tried. I did that in 2016. I kind of started going down that road, like trying to manifest things, trying to do things. But the more I surrendered and the more I actually worked on my shadow, and not worked on it, but worked with it, like brought it into the light, like realizing not everything is bubbles and fucking rainbows and unicorns and shit, like that I could actually embrace the whole, right? And use that, like how often are you actually sitting with yourself and sitting in meditation or sitting with yourself, working on your own, like with your own tools, what you got? Or how often are you sitting around reading a book about this is how you do this is how you do that, this is how I'm going to get where I need to go and get all the happiness I ever desired? Which one are you doing more of? Because where I'm going to lead you is straight to yourself, because that's what I know happened for me. It was in this, guys, I've seen supernatural things a lot of my life, but in the past like I'd say probably 4 years. But I have seen radical things that it's just mind-bending. It's mind-bending because in this reality, it's just considered TV or something. That's why I always tell you, stop watching your television. Let them tell your vision, or you tell your vision. Because you hold all the power. You are a magical, miraculous being, powerful being. You are a deity in yourself. You're a queen, a king, an empress, an emperor. But until you tap into that, you're not going to be able to manifest these things. You're just going to sit. You're still going to be a little like a sheep. You're just going to still be, I don't know. Can't get anywhere. But you really have to go in and do the work. You got to go in. You got to decide how are you going to flip this shit, right? And that's why I lead people into themselves. That's the work I do. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what your Akashic records are and tell you what I'm feeling. This is what you I'm not just going to sit here and tell you what maybe this thing that came up for you, maybe that's what this is. No, do you get what I'm saying? My point is, you have to tune into yourself. That's the only way to turn those switches on, is to go within and to go deep. And so that's why I do the work I do. And that's why I lead people towards themselves. And that's all I will do. You start talking about intuition, and people, they just run, they run off. People run off. I talk, a lot of the things I talk about, I notice, the people who stick with it are the people who are they resonate, man, and they're ready for the change. They're ready to make change in their life. Now, you can go to every workshop you want. You can have everybody tell you what this and that is, and you can have a lot of fun doing that. But if you want real change, it's not going to come from you reading a book. It's going to come from you going within. It's not from an external source. So that's that. You'll see miracles happen. I'm not saying I hope I don't sound condescending. I mean, I talk the way I talk because it's just the way I talk. And, like I said, you vibe or you don't. I'm real. I'm real. I'm going to tell you my truth. And I'm going to tell you what I've seen and what I've seen work and what I've seen that doesn't work. And, but at the same time, follow your path. I want you to follow your path. I'm never going to say, like, this is what you need to do, because that's exactly the opposite of what I'm talking about. I'm going to tell you, this is where you should go. This is what you should do. This is where you should search. I think you should take your own path. I think you should follow your own follow your soul. Follow your spirit. And eventually there's different paths to get there. Period. If you watched my last video, I was in the church for several years. Now, prior to that, I was, when I was young, I was reading astrology and tarot cards and all that. And yes, and then I ended up in the church. But what I will say about the church, and I hear so many people, now, when you talk about religion, and we talk about the massive separation, especially the really dark separation, the ones that manipulate in the higher ups, right? You want to get into, all the government and what's going on in that world that they try to keep us oblivious to. Now, there's some dark forces there, and you get the Catholic Church, you get all these things that are using text against us and whatnot, and they're using our own magic against us. That's why we got to wake up and become sovereign. But anyway, my point is, okay, so when Christian church, this is why I talk about, you got to think independently and think separately, and you can't judge people. You have to just be around. People are energy. Everything's energy. When we start thinking in energy more, you're gonna break like that personality matrix. You're gonna crack the code on the matrix right there when you think in energy, because everything's coming off in energy. It's not about this group of people, this categorized, this black group of people, this white group of people, this Republican, this Democrat, this vegan, this all these different groups we put ourselves in. I mean, you can go down the line. There's just tons of ways to separate ourselves in these categories and these groups, and the evangelical Christians, and then these Christians, and these. I mean, this is why it's so important to gain your sovereign thinking, because when you get down to it, and when you actually expand your consciousness, which is what I talk about all the time, this comes from going within. It's when you start shifting your energy and you start actually seeing and reading into different frequency, into different channels, you become wide awake to these things. You'll begin to see all this and see how you can crack those codes. But so yeah, thinking in energy. But when it comes to the Christian church, one thing I will say, when I was in the Christian church, I was, of course, remember where I came from, but I was never into that, like, Savior's prayer and all that kind of thing. But what I was into was the heart. The Christian church, I will say, with my time I spent there, I grew an unconditional love, and so big in my heart. I mean, I actually had a movement. I had what you would call a Kundalini movement when I was in church. Or Holy Spirit. I gained tongues. Like that's I remembered. I cracked open because of my heart. It was where my heart was. It was the expansion of my heart that happened while I was in church, when I was reading the Bible. Okay, New Testament's a great book. If you guys are out there reading all these other books that everybody's written, maybe you want to check out the New Testament and actually read that, because there's layers and layers to the New Testament. It's a very beautiful thing, and very actually eye-opening to our personal awakening and connection to self, and that, you know, the deity in us, the queen, the king, the empress, the emperor, all of it. So what I'm saying is I still grant that, you know, like, that's, so these things cultivated in me when I was in the church. I was on a worship team. I played percussion on a worship team that I loved. I worked at service. Service was the other one I want to talk about, because it taught me how to serve others and the heart I had for serving others outside of myself. So I worked with youth. I worked with at-risk youth. I worked with I was on a stomp team, man. I was like choreographing with all my, you know, hip hop skills and my martial arts, and my percussion. So stomp was always, I just, so many beautiful things I experienced when I was in the Christian church. So, and no, I didn't get into, my best friend was gay. So, I mean, you know, and there was never like this like separation for me. It was just more of a heart thing for me. So that's why I say you cannot judge people when they say they're a Christian. You can't judge. You can't put people in a box, man. You gotta wake up. And it's the same thing across the board with anywhere else, you know, any other things, like, you know, you got all these people that separate themselves, and even like the yoga culture, you know, you got people that want to separate themselves. They constantly just want to separate themselves. They're living in this personality matrix, right? Where do I fit? What am I? Who am I? What is this? What is my identity? Well, your identity is you're gonna figure that out when you go within. You have to go within, and it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, but you have to go within. When you're reaching for the external, that's when you start becoming trapped again, and, you know, it's all these. Anyway, the point is, yeah, I just really, I find it a lot, especially, you know, in the South, especially with, you know, the New Age culture and whatnot. Christianity's always shut down really quick, but and you just can't, you have to understand, and if you are a conscious person and you've expanded your consciousness in any way, if you are, you know, if you've been to higher places, then you're not going to be judging the person who's literally reading their Bible, because, you know, yeah, maybe like there's some irritating things that they're going to say, and, you know, you can predict all the ways they're going to act, but the thing is like, they haven't got there. Maybe they haven't had the tools offered to them. Maybe they just haven't gotten there. They don't understand. So you can't really get mad at them. You can't really judge them. You just kind of have to love them. You kind of have to just send them love, and you know, and pray for them, man. Like, I mean, how much praying are you actually doing for people? That's another thing I find in the New Age culture, is just like, it can be almost just so ridiculous. Like, I don't even know. People just get so caught up, like I said, in rainbows and fucking unicorns, that they're not paying attention to the realities, and they're not getting their hands dirty enough, if that makes sense. That's why it's service, and that's one thing I will say. It's one thing I've been all about, and it cultivated in me in the Christian church, was service to people. And I still do that. I mean, even when I was in California, and I was like, I would still serve. I still went to high schools. I still talked to kids. I still gave everything I could at the time for those kids. I mean, there's a lot of gangbangers there, and a lot of kids going through things, and especially women, young girls. That was a big thing for me, was speaking to young women, because they've, you know, this society we've lived in is very dark as far as the distortion that's been put on feminines and women, and how they should be, how they should act, how they should look, what they should accept, and what they shouldn't. Anyway, so I've worked with women for a long time, and that's going to lead me to my next video. I've been waiting for this one for a while, but it's going to be on, you know, sexualization of women and men, and the distortion therein, because to me, it couldn't be more valid at this time. And you know, I've had, like I said, lots of things going on within me to speak about, to talk about, and share with you guys, that I've been kind of sitting on for a while, and just waiting for it. Not even waiting for the right time. It's just I go when Spirit leads me to go, and now is go time. It's time for me to pick up my torch, and it's time for me to speak my truth to all of y'all, and whoever's going to listen. You know, I can't make you listen to me, and there's a lot of people that don't support me and don't want to listen to me for whatever their own reasons are. Everybody's got their own, you know, their own channels they're living on, and that's cool. But there are more like me out there, and there are people that really, you know, we need each other, and we also, you know, it's time to speak up, and you know, it's time for everybody to be independent more than anything. Independent in their thinking, free thinkers. Turn that damn TV off. Stop listening to your neighbors. Stop listening to just whatever, whoever's preaching something to you. You need to go within so you can then navigate where you're to go. You can navigate your true identity in this consciousness. Consciousness has its own intelligence, and when it's time to wake to arise, it will arise. You can't force it. There's no specific fashion. Anyway, however, there are ways to treat yourself, and we'll get into that more too. As I can't wait to move so I can move forward with some things. Have my own space. It's like I finally am expanding out of this small space I've been in, doing my work for the past 2 years. It's time to expand. It's time to grow. It's time to level up in another way. And you know, for me, that's taking my torch and lighting y'all's torches and doing it the way I know to do it, spirit led. Anyway, that's gonna be it. I don't even know where I went. So anyway, God bless. As within, so without. As above, so below. I gotta get to the gym like now. So, all right. See you guys later. Bye.